All right, well, welcome. Welcome back. I appreciate you guys coming back. Thanks for being here. It's fun to know that there's a lot of folks out there that are interested in this. I appreciate that. So just to kind of set the stage for the rest of this presentation, I've got a lot of stuff that I want to cover. Obviously, this is me trying to do too much in too short a time, which I'm known for, so I apologize for that. So what I've done is I've got my running shoes on, and I'll be running around the room here trying to see if we can get going here. So I'm going to go from point A to point B. Chris, if you could mute yourself, please, Chris. Chris, could you mute yourself, please? We can hear you clacking away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for yelling. That's nice. Point A to point B, we're going to run through this. I'm going to try to cover everything. Obviously, if there is more you need to know, I hope that you are interested enough that you find a local training, or perhaps the ATTs can help you with a training. My hope is that you decide you want to do more of this, and you like more in-depth training. Obviously, what I'm showing you are a whole bunch of different components of MI. Really, the work here begins when you start to practice this, and I think the practice really takes a hands-on workshop with lots and lots of interaction and lots of role play and getting into the part. So those are my thoughts, and let's see where we go with this. I also neglected yesterday to give thanks to SAMHSA, that's been the grant funders for my position for the last 4 years. I certainly appreciate the grant position. It's been very, very helpful to me. And of course, just a thanks to those that do fund alcohol research, because we know that without their funding, where will we be? 8 stages learning MI. So we got to this yesterday. The first is the spirit of MI. The spirit of MI is really the key. Thinking of the spirit, going back to the collaboration, the evocation, the respect and autonomy that we talked about yesterday. So that I think is the first thing we need to really think about before we start this work. Adopting that spirit, practicing that. If we have that spirit of empathy, the spirit of respect and autonomy for the client, that's really huge. That goes a long way. If you can sit with the client and you can demonstrate your respect for them and your empathy for them, I think that carries us a long way. The second thing we want to talk about today is really the building blocks of motivational interviewing, building blocks of the relationship building skills, which are the OARS, acronym number 4 or 5, I'm not sure, I lost count. Open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. These really are the person-centered counseling skills that are the building blocks. Then we'll look at change talk, and if you remember yesterday, that came up a few times: desirability, reason, need, commitment, activation, taking steps. Darn cats is the acronym for that. Then we're going to talk about how to elicit, strengthen that change talk, looking at some dancing with discord. This was what we used to call rolling with resistance. We're shifting it now, dancing with discord. Developing a change plan and consolidating commitment to whatever is next for the client, for the patient. What do they decide they want to do? How committed are they to it? And then shifting flexibly between MI and whatever else we would normally do. If we are referring folks to treatment, if we are referring them to some form of treatment outside of our purview, we will do that. Perhaps it's to AA, perhaps it's to standard treatment, perhaps it's to CBT or something that we're going to help them with in our own agencies. Whatever it may be, we're going to shift between MI and other approaches. Always keeping in mind that MI, the spirit of MI, I think, is something that runs through everything that we do. So this came out a couple of years ago from Bill Miller, and I think it was really just to clarify some things about motivational interviewing. He was, I think, trying to answer the question that had been raised about the pairing with MI with trans-theoretical model, the TTM with the pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance model. They both come out at the same time. They were both worded for many years, and in many ways they still are, but Dr. Miller wanted to just set the stage straight that this is not based on the trans-theoretical model, although certainly they've been used in conjunction. MI is not a way of tricking people to do things they don't want to do. We're not going to try to implant thoughts. We're not Jedi Masters here. We're not trying to implant thoughts in the minds of our patients. We want to help them to get to their own goals, things they want to do for themselves. It's not a technique. You heard me say yesterday, it's not a technique, but it's a way of being. And it's going to feel like a series of techniques if you take this on. When you start to do this, when you start to really get into the weeds with MI, I'm going to ask you to think about what it is you're saying, what it is that you're doing with the patient in ways that you hadn't really thought about perhaps before. It's not decisional balance, so the decisional balance is certainly a part of the interventions we may do. It does not require assessment feedback. The MET process does require some assessment feedback. Certainly the SBIRT work we do is going to require some screening feedback, but MI in and of itself as a standalone modality is not something that requires assessment feedback. It's not a form of CBT, although there's certainly been lots of work done that blends the two, and they seem to blend very nicely. It's not just Rogerian client-centered counseling, it takes it a little further than that. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. What I find in my work is that when I am working with clients, working with counselors, or whomever I'm working with, many seem to think, oh, this is what I already do, and I listen to their work, and there's a sense that perhaps it's not quite what you're already doing as well. It's not a panacea. It doesn't work every time with every patient, with every client. There's certainly times when being direct is still going to be very important. If a client is holding a chair above my head, I doubt that I'm going to reflect upon that very much. I may actually try to get the chair away from him. Who knows? Just as an homage to stages of change, this is really where the work was, I think, most useful in the contemplation stages of change and helping folks move towards preparation and action. So the work here was, the thinking was that about 80% of the clients we see are not yet in action or preparation, and that's where MI was found to be the most useful with the stages of change model. So these are some beach huts in South Africa, and my friend Steve Burke-Smith gave me this picture many years ago. And the idea being that if we were to take pots of paint and paint these beach huts, and that's all we did, dipped up a brush in the paint and then slap the paint on, in very short order that paint would fade, would peel, would crack, and it wouldn't stick unless we primed the surface first. So MI is that for our clients. It's a way of priming them for what comes next in their lives. So we're priming them and preparing them for behavior change, which is really our primary goal. It's been coined as like dancing and not wrestling, which I think is a wonderful way of thinking of motivational interviewing. If we find ourselves wrestling with our clients, with our patients, we're probably barking up the wrong tree. May want to step back and rethink that. My friend Stephen Andrew talks about practicing radical humility when we find ourselves in such places. So looking at the fundamental processes, the first of engaging, and I mentioned yesterday that engaging is something that we're going to do not just in the beginning, but perhaps we'll re-engage whenever necessary. We're going to find ourselves perhaps drifting with patients that we may end up having to re-engage, we have to refocus, we have to re-evoke. But these are the underlying processes. So in the engagement, we really want to set the stage for the client to feel safe. This could take time, it may need to be reworked. And thinking in ambivalence is normal, it's always going to be present. Our ambivalence of our clients is going to be in the forefront. Our goal is to amplify ambivalence and see what they want to do with it. And really the engagement piece is our connection, our joining up with our clients, with our patients. That even if we only see someone for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the ability to join up with them and see what's important to them is really critical for the engaging piece. A lovely way to start. If you've done a screening with someone, would you be interested in knowing what your scores mean? Asking permission, again, before we jump into this work. I think that's always key. So then we're going to, looking at the flow model we talked about yesterday, this is where we're going to offer the feedback after we've asked permission. And then of course we can get into some of the acronyms we learned yesterday, the range, asking what they think the scores may be, looking at normal scores, giving their score, eliciting reaction. And these are all on that one sheet that was that accompanied this webinar for you to download and read at your leisure. Then we get into the OARS with open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. I'm going to break them down into bite-sized chunks and see how we can get through the meaning and definition of these. But we're starting with closed questions. This is something that we do an awful lot, especially in our assessments, especially in a lot of our intake processes, depending on where we work. And even our screenings are often closed-ended questions. They offer nothing, elicit nothing but a short answer, perhaps, or a number perhaps, yes, 3 times last week, whatever it may be, looking for addresses, looking for multiple choice sometimes, but still limiting the answers. This is stuff we know, this is stuff we do a lot, we do this already. Looking at open questions, then they're going to sort of shift that perspective a little bit. They're going to open the door a little bit. We want the patients to speak more. We want them to talk more than we're talking. So open questions have the ability to do that. They're not limiting the client's answers. There's certainly more than one way to respond. Just some ideas, some thoughts about what open questions might look like. These are just some that I certainly have used and continue to use that I think can be effective. And you will have access to this PowerPoint, so you can refer back to any of these you want to. But just the idea being that we want to open it up. Looking at good things, not so good things. What have you tried before? What can you tell me about? It opens the door, it encourages the client to speak, which is one of our primary goals. I love this slide because this really illuminates for me the value in shifting a couple of words from the question, turning it from a closed to an open, and you can almost feel the difference in the response you may get. If I ask a general group of folks, do you feel you have a problem with alcohol? Chances are I'm going to get a resounding no, depending on where I am. It may be even a curse word in front of that, who knows. I can't say that because I'm in the South now. And then we have the open-end part of that. If we open this up, what problems has your alcohol use caused you? An open question that I think you'll see can really open up the possibilities. Why I had the DUI, my wife got mad at me, my boss isn't very happy with me, but I don't have a problem with alcohol. I imagine you've heard that, depending on your work situation from time to time. Is it important to you to complete this program successfully? You might get a resounding yes, of course, idiot. Why do you think I'm here? Or open a question up. How important is it for you to complete this program successfully? You may get a variety of answers. If I don't complete this now, I'm going to lose my kids. I'm not going to get my license back. I'm going to lose my house. So we're eliciting communication. I absolutely love this last one. If I ask you as a group, if I could see you look in your eyes and say, anything else? Chances are you're going to say, oh no. If I ask the question, what else? What else? I would imagine, my experience is that gets the wheels turning. People start thinking. The answer may still be nothing, but people are thinking, and maybe there's something. Maybe they're digging for something that may not be on the surface. Guidelines of questions, ask fewer questions. We ask a ton of questions. If we can find a way to ask fewer questions in some of our screenings, some of our assessments, I think that will bode well for our relationship with the clients. If you can avoid asking 3 questions in a row, if you have to do an intake form or have to do something where you're asking a whole bunch of questions, even our screening questions, once we get into any of the longer screenings, find some way to reflect between asking questions. We still have the same amount of questions to ask. If we can find a way to reflect, well, I think we'll find that we're going to help to continue to create relationship. There's been lots of work done around using motivational interviewing in the assessment process. And if you're interested in that, there is a website you can go to. There's a whole project that was done a few years back called the MIA STEP, MIA, Motivational Interviewing Assessment STEP, Supervisory Tools for Enhanced Proficiency. And that's a great way of looking at how you can utilize motivational interviewing around the assessment process, and you can help with client retention that way. Use more open questions and closed questions. I think this is important. Not something that we think about much, but thinking of questions, are they open or are they closed? And again, my experience is that many of us use closed questions while thinking or while we're using open questions. Offering 2 reflections for each question asked. This is a gold standard. This is really, if you work into competency with motivational interviewing, you'll be reflecting much more than you are asking questions. I listened to the work of Bill Miller, Tay Moyers, and Steve Rolnick, and they more often than not are reflecting rather than asking questions. Not to say that we don't ask questions, because of course we do, but we're reflecting more. Affirmations, second part of the OARS. Recognize and emphasize the strength in a client and a patient. They could be a positive action. Obviously it needs to be genuine. If it's not genuine, the clients will feel it. But it's something that we can do very easily that builds a sense of empowerment for our patients. It doesn't take much on our part. It instills that can-do attitude at times as well. And certainly a way to express our positive regard and caring for the clients. They may include something as simple as commenting positively on an attribute, a strong person, a real survivor, anybody that's been in their addiction for many years, or anybody that's been struggling with binge drinking. And it takes a lot of strength to come to a realization that they want to do something different, or perhaps it took a lot of strength for them to live that life, a lot of resourcefulness they had to exhibit. It could be something as simple as appreciating someone's honesty in a setting, in a interview. Catch me doing something right. Thanks for coming in today. I worked for many years at a treatment center in Florida, and one young man used to walk past and shake my hand and thank me for coming to work. And I thought, this guy's a fool. Why does he do this every day? But after a few months of that, I started looking for him, looking for my affirmation, being at work. It was an interesting shift for me. It could be something as simple as an expression of hope, caring, or support. If someone has something that's upcoming for them, hoping that it goes well for them, supporting them in that. So then we get into, after the engagement process, so we get into focusing. Focusing is really, we're going to take a look at, if the first is shall we walk together, this is where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? What is it that you'd like to do? And this is where the reflections come in, I think, strongly. And not to say that reflections aren't part of the whole process, but I think it's important to be able to hear in client speech those pieces that we want to reflect back. We're listening for change talk, we're listening for hopes, goals, ideals, dreams, whatever it may be. And we're listening for those pieces and we're going to reflect those back. A quote from Bill Noller talks really about, when we get stuck, we should just listen to the clients, listen to the patients that tell us what they want us to do. So the communication obviously can break down. I've certainly experienced that. Of course, I have the disadvantage of speaking funny, so I've been told. But it certainly can break down from what the listener hears, from what the speaker says. So there's several places where communication breaks down. The meaning that the speaker has in his mind to what he actually says, to what the listener hears, and the interpretation of what the listener hears. All those places where it can break down. Again, I know that I've experienced this in my own work, where someone's thought I've said something when I didn't say what it was, what I said. I imagine many of you have too. So really the reflection is the way to bridge that gap between what was said and what your interpretation was, making sure that you got it right, almost testing your hypothesis at times. This is what I thought I heard. Did I get it right? So I'm going to run through a list of types of empathic reflections, and then I'm going to go over them individually. And I'm going to invite someone to actually have a chat with me if someone's willing to. So we'll get there in a few minutes. So these are the types of empathic reflections, and certainly there are more types than these. This isn't a definitive list. So there are more types of reflection than these. These are just some ideas of types of reflection. Everything from simple repeating what was just said to slightly altering it to adding some intensity and amplified, looking at both sides in double-sided, creating a picture in a metaphor, shift the focus through our reflection, maybe reframe, always emphasizing personal choice and autonomy. And then sometimes a paradoxical reflection is also appropriate. And it could be any one of these, it could be others as well. These are just some ideas that you might work with. And of course, the depth of the empathy is going to change with the level of complexity of the reflection. A simple repeat doesn't have a lot of empathy attached to it, although it certainly lets the patient know that you are hearing them, whereas something deeper with perhaps metaphor or a reframe may have a lot more empathy attached to it. So this is simple repeating. I don't want to quit smoking. You don't want to quit smoking. Yeah, that's kind of what I said. Won't take us very far, but it is a way to let the client know that we are listening to them. This is another one of my favorite cartoons. I have lots of favorite cartoons. But we want to avoid simple reflection as a standard if we can. Rephrasing. I really want to quit smoking. Quitting smoking is very important to you. It's just adding a little bit of difference to it, but not a huge amount. But it can also help the patient move forward when they hear that. They may come back with something else. Amplified reflection. My smoking isn't that bad. Now there's a caution around this one, because if you use this with sarcasm in your voice, then it's not going to land well. My smoking isn't that bad. There's no reason at all to be concerned about your smoking. and see what happens. Many times I present this in workshops and I'll get a variety of responses. And, some folks think that this is going to invite argument, and some folks think this is going to invite clients saying, great, someone finally agrees with me. Maybe. My experience is that the people, when they get this kind of response, will generally start to build a case, or no, actually there are reasons, I know there's reasons, for their own behavior change. And that's our goal. Our goal is to get our clients, our patients, to recognize that the behavior change is something that they like, if indeed it is something they like, and to build their own argument for that change. If we can get it to become their idea, which of course it is, if we can help them see their idea, then their idea is the best idea in the room, and there's more chance of follow through. That double-sided, so smoking helps reduce stress. So on the one hand, smoking helps reduce stress. On the other hand, as you said previously, it also causes stress because now you have a hacking cough, you can smoke outside and spend more money on cigarettes. So we have both sides of that. So this will come up more frequently. This is usually, I think most people's go-to reflection is a double-sided reflection. So it's certainly one that is user-friendly. Metaphor. I love metaphor. Metaphor, when it's done right, is something that can certainly open up a conversation. And if a picture paints 1,000 words, then metaphor can certainly speak a few paragraphs, I would imagine. Everyone keeps telling me I have a drinking problem. I don't feel like it's that bad. It's kind of like everyone is pecking on you about drinking, like a flock of crows pecking away at you. And that was lifted almost verbatim from a video clip, video that Terry Moyers did for an original DVD series on motivational interviewing, which actually was just released. If you're interested in training DVDs, that one came out, I think, just a couple months ago now. It's Motivational Interviewing, Helping People Change. Bill Miller, Terry Moyers, Steve Roenick. It's a great DVD series. And actually, they kept, this is from a clip called The Rounder. They kept that clip in the new DVD, so they revised it and reprised it for the 2013 series, even though it came out in 1998. So, a long story around thanking Terry Moyers for that metaphor. And then the shift in focus, so providing understanding for the client situation and diffuse resistance. This is something I think many of us have heard in one form or another. It may not be around cigarettes, it could be around heroin use, it could be around taking medication, it could be around having a particular mental health disorder. What do you know about quitting? You probably never smoked. And you could just fill in the blanks and put in whatever works for you in that. And there's a sense there that it really depends upon the lens of the counselor as to how that lands with the counselor. I'd like to think that what the client is asking for is to be understood. I know there are many thoughts around what this client is doing. They're trying to challenge us, they're trying to see what we've done, they want to know if we've been in their shoes. There's a whole lot of arguments around that. I like to keep it simple. It's hard to imagine how I could possibly understand. It might be a reflection that would join up with that patient and not push too hard on that patient. The reframe. I've tried to quit and failed so many times. You're persistent, even in the face of discouragement. This change must be really important to you. I love the reframe. That's really, to me, that really changes an outlook. You almost see someone's face shift if you're able to reframe their thoughts on that. Emphasizing personal choice. I've been considering quitting for some time now because I know it's bad for my health. You're worried about your health, and you want to make different choices. You want to make it, not that somebody else wants it, but you want to make it. So it's really giving them the autonomy, emphasizing their choices. So that's my list on reflections. And again, not to say that this is all we do, because it's not. And I think this is really where it gets challenging for many of us to get our head around reflections. So one of the exercises I do in my trainings is an exercise on reflections only. Now, I don't know how this is going to fly on a webinar, but we're going to try it anyway. So if there's a volunteer that would be willing to share with me something you feel two ways about, that you have some ambivalence about, that you're thinking about changing but haven't changed yet, and I'm going to try to just reflect and to reflect only. If there's a volunteer that's willing to do that, now I could fall on my face here in front of this faceless audience of 250 odd people. But that's okay. I don't mind doing that. I'd love to have the opportunity to practice this for a few minutes, just for 3 minutes, with a volunteer if I have one in the audience.
Okay, this is Chris. If anybody would like to speak with Alan, just click the hand icon next to your name, and I will unmute you. Otherwise, you can just type that in the questions or chat box, and I can unmute you if I see your message there too. So let's have a couple volunteers.
Well, I want to thank Cookie yesterday for volunteering. That was huge. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I've got one for you. Just a moment. Okay, Teresa Ford. Just a minute. Let me find her. Okay, I've got Teresa. Teresa, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
Thank you for volunteering. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So my question to you is, what is it that you've been thinking about changing that you may not have changed yet?
Making more changes around my eating habits. I think it would help me, but at the same time, I don't like feeling restricted.
Okay, so you're kind of at a place in your life where you recognize that making some changes will be helpful to you, and at the same time, you don't like that feeling that I can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that's pretty uncomfortable.
It is, because I think about the benefits when I'm eating more healthfully. I feel better. It would help me to lose weight. But at the same time, I already have food allergies, so there are things I can't eat because I'm allergic to them. So I feel like I would be even more restricted.
So you're already carrying a huge burden with the food allergy. You already have to watch what you eat and look at menus and look at ingredients, and you're doing a lot already for this. Adding to that more restrictions is not something that interests you that much.
Well, I don't say it doesn't interest me, but I haven't tipped to the other side. I do it somewhat, but not all the time, and there are times, particularly if I'm upset, I will go for the things I know that are not good for me.
So you recognize that perhaps some of the eating that you do is more aligned with your emotional state than a physical need.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
And at the same time, again, you find yourself still doing it, and I imagine that can be pretty frustrating.
Yes, I mean, sometimes I can either not do it or at least go for something healthier. And instead of having ice cream, I can have a fruit juice pop, something like that.
Yeah, so there are times when you put aside the idea that I don't want to do this, and you find yourself doing it, and it sounds as though that's something that you actually enjoy at times.
Yes, I have to admit I do.
And I would imagine that if you were in a place where you could enjoy it more, it might be something that interested you more. Is the idea that this is hard work, that I'm already doing a lot. This would add to my burden.
Right. Even though I know that when I'm eating better, I feel so much better. I mean, not just in terms of my energy level, things like I have some chronic health issues like arthritis. My arthritis is better when I'm eating more healthy, and I look better, and how I look is important to me. So there are a lot of reasons that I would benefit, but I just am not quite ready to completely stop because, frankly, I like some of the crap that I eat.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, the conundrum is that we like some of the stuff that we do, and at the same time, you're obviously somebody that's really in tune with yourself physically, and you have a sense of who you are, and you recognize that this isn't just about eating well, this is about looking good and about feeling good as well. There's a whole lot to this.
Right, and I'm middle-aged, so I'm at the point where if I don't make some changes now, it could have some repercussions in terms of my health from here on out.
but I would imagine that you're kind of on this fence here, knowing that looking down the road, if you get off the fence on one side, the road isn't that long, and on the other side there's a long path that you're not sure what's going to happen, but you're pretty sure what would happen if you continued on the path that you're on without making any changes.
Right, right.
Well, I want to stop there. I want to thank you very much, Teresa. I want to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay, before we get off.
Sure.
What was that like for you? All I did was reflect. What was it like for you?
It was fine, and I was aware that you were just reflecting, but I didn't feel annoyed, because I think if you don't, and I'm a counselor educator as well as a therapist, and if people don't do it well, you can get annoyed with them because they're just repeating what you said. But I didn't feel annoyed. I felt like you were with me. So it was good.
Right. Well, I really, really appreciate you jumping in and becoming a volunteer for this, because it makes it a lot more interesting when I'm not talking to myself. So thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it.
All right. You're quite welcome.
Thank you. I'll remute you now.
Okay.
So again, thanks to Teresa. That was very kind of her to jump in. So the third part of the OARS is the summary, and the summary is really a nice way to bring everything together. It was presented to me many years ago as though it's kind of like when I'm speaking with someone, with a client, it's almost like they're scattering these flowers around the room. It's another one of these hippie analogies that I used to resist, but you know what, I kind of love it now. So it's a way of gathering those flowers, rearranging them in a bouquet, and handing it back in the form of a summary. That bouquet of a couple of daffodils is about as good as I could get anywhere with a bouquet, but there you go. So summary is a way of handing back the client's words in such a way that they didn't quite get to see it before. Summarizing also then is a special form of reflective listening. We want to be able to use it at various times, not just at the end of a conversation. It's going to ensure clear communication. It's going to let the client know that we're listening. We can use it at transitions. If we're moving into another topic or another part of the conversation, we can certainly summarize where we are to that point. We're going to be concise. Obviously, we can't summarize 45 minutes if we've had a 45-minute conversation. It needs to be just some of the highlights. And any ambivalence that we hear, we want to reflect back in the summary. And of course, any change talk that we hear, again, darn cats, thinking of desirability, reason, need, commitment, activation, taking steps. So how am I is directed, then we select the questions that we ask. We're not following a script. And I think with SBIRT we certainly want to get to some points because we only have a short amount of time. But we select the questions, we select the reflections, we select what we want to elaborate, and we select what we summarize. So this is really how MI becomes directive. Of course, there's a fundamental belief that the capacity and potential for change and adherence to that change is with everyone. That the folks we meet, even if it's just for 5 minutes in an emergency center, that they have the capacity for change if they desire to change. And they have the capacity to adhere to that change. And MI is one way to create relationship to help them. This could be the glue that helps them adhere to the changes that they want to make. One of the benefits of motivational interviewing. Fundamental process number 3 is going to be evoking. Evoking. This is where our change talk comes into this. We're going to be evoking, getting from the client why they want to go there, why would they want to make this change, what, if anything, would interest them in this. So there are ways that we want to take a look at possibly doing that. So this is where we're really starting to tune into the change talk. Again, change talk, there it is, desirability, reason, needs. I want to, I wish to, I'd like to, ability, I would, I can, I'm able to, I have in the past. There are good reasons, I really need to do this. We're going to hear that. Some of them are going to be obvious. Some of it's going to be really buried in sustained talk. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then we've got commitment, activation, taking steps. And commitment, I intend to, I will, I plan to. Commitment comes on a continuum. Everything from, I think this would be a good idea, to I will, I'm going to do this, I swear I'm going to do this, and everything in between. I got married a couple of years ago, and as I stood before the minister, and he asked me if I would take this wonderful woman, Sarah, to be my lawfully wedded wife. If I had said, well, my friends think it would be a good idea, it wouldn't have been much of a commitment. You know, what they wanted to hear from me was I do, I will, and I think I added, yes, thank goodness I will. Activation. I'm doing this today. I'm getting ready to do this. I'm going to do this. And then taking steps. I did this already. I went to my first group. I didn't smoke today. I watched what I ate this morning. Whatever it may be. I ran this morning. Whatever it could be. But taking steps. So there's change talk. And of course, digging for this is where open questions may come in, and reflecting it back is where some of our reflections are going to be very, very helpful. Some open questions. What are your thoughts about? What are some things that bother you about? How would you like it to be different down the road? So just some ideas. Again, many, many ways to do this, not just one right way to do this. And of course, the other side of change talk is sustained talk, because we have two sides to our ambivalence, of course. If we think of behavior change and we haven't done it yet, we have two sides. So one side is change, the other side is sustained. So sustained for a gambler may be, I really enjoy gambling. That may be the desire. I desire to gamble. I don't think I can give it up. Maybe an inability to make a change. Gambling's how I have fun. Good reason to keep doing it. I don't think I need to quit. I tend to keep on gambling and nobody can stop me. That sounds like a pretty good commitment right there. I'm not ready to quit. So there's a sort of inactivation. I went back to the casino today. I'm taking steps to make sure I continue to do this. So the opposite of change talk is sustained, but it has its own desirability, reason, need, commitment, activation, taking steps. So that they're all in a conversation. And our goal is to recognize the change talk components, amplify those, reflect those back. So then we get into this idea of resistance. Now, I spent 10 years of my MI career talking about rolling with resistance and finding ways to do that. So now I'm having to let go of that. So this is me trying to let go of that. So really, when we have any change, if we're up against a change, we're really thinking two ways. On the one hand, we've got a change talk, on the other hand, we've got our sustained talk. And resistance, which is now, of course, not resistance, but now known as discord, will arise when we as counselors, as health education specialists, as physicians, as nurses, push into someone's decision-making around change or sustained talk. If they are not in change and we push hard into change, we actually push them into sustain. So we really want to try to keep that equipoise, keep that place in the middle. We're going to amplify change talk and not so much sustained talk, but it's really up to the patient what they do with this. So we want to be careful about how hard we push. If I push into your change talk, I think it came up yesterday in the exercise of ambivalence when I asked you to think of something you're ambivalent about. If I push you into it and say I want you to make a decision about where you want to go with this, I think for many of you may have experienced that rise in anxiety, even though I'm many states away and far removed from perhaps where you are. It's internal. It's an internal anxiety that rises when somebody pushes into your change talk. So sustained talk is about the behavior. I don't want to quit smoking. I need my pills just to make it through the day. And discord is about the relationship. There's a discord. There's something mismatched in the relationship between the patient and the counselor, the therapist. And both of these, both sustained talk and discord, is responsive to the practitioner, to our style, how we present ourselves, how well do we do on engagement, how well are we doing with evocation and focusing. It really depends on how well we're doing. Discord then is a behavior, it's a signal of dissonance that something is amiss, and it's predictive of non-change. If we witness, we're present to someone expressing this, it may come across as sitting in silence. It may come across as someone becoming angry or annoyed. Maybe that they're not showing up. Maybe that they decide they want to terminate the interview prematurely. There's a whole bunch of ways it could happen. Of course, we may have this desire to pry their substance from them, and that's how they perceive us. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that. This came from Yale University School of Medicine. So again, looking at change and sustained talk as both sides of the same coin in one sense. When there's ambivalence, on one side we're going to have change, on one side we're going to have sustain. And this comes back to our darn cats again. I'm thinking desirability, reason, need, darn cats. I want to help you to remember this. So look into the cat, look into the cat. We're going to take a quick video here. Hopefully this works. I'd like you to remember darn cats. This is one way perhaps we can remember this.
There's a man
there you go. The darn cat did it, as you can see. So, darn cats. Desirability, reason, need, commitment, activation, taking steps. I've mentioned several times that we are metaphor heavy, and here's another one for you. This is one that Bill Miller presented last October in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We had a meeting there. So we're talking about the metaphor of the MI hill. The MI hill. So if we're on the MI hill, we're looking at, on the way up the hill, if we're in thinking of stages of change model again, so it's kind of reading back into it again, we're in pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation is the preparatory change talk. So we're looking at the darn, desirability, reason, or need. And on the way down, of course, we're moving into action, maintenance maybe over here somewhere. We're looking at the mobilizing change talk, commitment, activation, and taking steps. So for those of you that are enjoying the metaphors, there's another one for you. Metaphor hill, MI hill. I want to go there, I want to go here. The change talk then is like gold. We're going to listen for it, and at times we have to mine for it. It's not always easy for us to see. So we want to make sure that we're really listening. This is why it's important for us to be really aware of how well we listen, which is one of the reasons I started yesterday with an exercise on how well we listen. Actually, I didn't do the exercise because it's hard to do on the phone, but there is an exercise I do in my workshops on listening skills. So there's no pressure or persuasion once patients start to speak about their change and hear the possibilities. The reflection of that really has a way of lifting the patient. You can almost see it. I can see it in patients' eyes when I work with them, and it kind of clicks with them that they really have some controls here, and they can make some shifts and changes. Maybe there's small changes, small shifts towards their goals. No matter what their goals may be, there's something they can do towards it. So I love that idea that we're mining for change tool. So in this sense, I'm going to throw a few sentences up and really just try to see if or where there's any change talk in these. It's hard to see change talk and I love to smoke my weed. It isn't really there as far as I can tell. Also sustained talk. I don't see how drinking 4 or 5 beers a night is a problem. Again, probably some sustained talk in there. So if I'm thinking of ways perhaps I want to continue the conversation there, I may ask a question, or I may reflect perhaps. So at some point you recognize that your beer drinking could become a problem. And my question may be, at what point would that be? Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. I'm sick of smoking, it disgusts me. So there's some reason right there. There's a couple of reasons that it gives us. It's sick of it and it disgusts him or her. So the reason's right there. So our reflection would represent that. I need to get high to feel right. I need to get high to feel right. Now, even though the word need is in there, there's not a lot of change talk. Although, again, if I were to try to continue the conversation, it may be something, I may reflect something along the lines of, you recognize that you don't feel good most of the time. You don't feel right. And see where that goes. And look at the getting high part as a separate issue. I've been kind of forgetting to take my antidepressants. So, again, looking at any change talk that may be in there is kind of hidden. And really there's not a whole lot we can look at other than perhaps recognizing that there are times when you do take your antidepressants. You recognize that it's important and you do take them sometimes. Might be a reflection to dig for that. I just want to wake up sober in the morning. It's pretty overt. It's out there. There's a desire to do something different. And that's what I want to reflect back. I stayed away from drug dealing all week. There's obviously some ability there that they've just been doing that. There must be some desire behind it as well. So those are the things that we can reflect back in our reflection. It's important to me to be a good example for my children. Again, that's out there. That's overt. There's good reasons there. That's what we want to reflect back. Being a good parent is of the utmost importance to you, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to do that. As an example. I definitely can't afford to get another DWI. Again, the change talk is right there. There's this need there. I cannot afford to do this. There's probably reason there as well. So that's what we want to reflect back. So looking at this, I have some questions. This is the first one that are going to come up. And what I'm looking for, again, is a volunteer to help me to illuminate this, to shed some light on what I'm looking for. So there are some open questions that may help you to evoke change talk. And what I'd like to do is, if somebody's willing to have a conversation in which I can invoke some change talk perhaps, and then I'm going to practice reflecting back what I hear, because these questions are great for evoking change talk, and I think that really the meat of this is not only invoking it, but in then reflecting it and holding it in reflection. See where that lands. So I wonder if anybody would be willing to have a conversation with me. As you can tell, I don't bite, and it's so far not been too painful, I hope, for either Cookie or Teresa. So I wonder if there's another volunteer that would be willing to spend about 3 or 4 minutes with me on this conversation.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Lynn, I will unmute you since you were the first one to reply. Okay, this is Lynn. Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for volunteering. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So Lynn, let me ask you what it is you've been thinking about changing, what it is you're thinking that you have some ambivalence about that you haven't changed yet that would be good for if you did.
My exercising.
Exercising. Okay, great. Let's see how this rolls out. So again, I appreciate it. Let's see how we do here. So why have you been thinking about changing your exercising habits, Lynn?
Because exercising, when I did exercise, I felt better. I felt less stressed. I had more energy, and I lost a few pounds.
Yes, so you recognize that you have less energy now that you're not exercising as much, that when you did it, you felt generally better about yourself. You had more energy. You felt a little more alive, I would imagine.
Yes.
So if you were to change your exercise habits, Lynn, how might you do it?
Well, I would either start walking or start riding a bike.
So those are things that are reasonably easy for you to jump into, and it sounds as though you put some thought into this already.
Yeah, I have. Like I said, walking is easy. I mean, you can do that anywhere, and actually I just got a bike, and so I can do that, again, anywhere, and it's free. So that kind of helps as well.
There's no membership fee. There's nothing to sign up for. You don't have to make a commitment to years and years. And you've already bought the bike, so you're already halfway there. That's really cool. That's great.
Right.
Great.
Right.
So what are the 3 most important reasons for wanting to make this change? I mean, you mentioned a couple of things, but what are the most important reasons you think for you to make this change?
Cut down on my stress.
Okay, that's one. That's great. Cut down on stress. What else?
The other is, again, the health. Just to get healthy.
Okay, so generally just to get healthier.
Right. And then the third is always a bonus of losing weight.
Okay. So the third is losing weight. So really the stress came out very quickly and that was the first one. So I imagine that you recognize that exercise for you could be a stress reducer. That may help you in other areas. And then of course getting healthier and losing weight, those are bonuses as well. Taking care of yourself physically as well as emotionally. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So how would things be different for you? Better for you perhaps if you decided to do this?
It would probably help me to sleep better.
Oh, okay.
Which is an additional added bonus. But just the way, I guess exercising in general will just help all the things that I talked about already, and then just actually being able to sleep better, waking up on time, not having some of the other issues that go along with being overstressed and my mind continually to run.
Right. So rather than sort of laying there with this reel, almost this movie running in your head every night about everything you got to do and all the things you haven't done and things you want to do, all that stress kind of build up. The sense is that exercise will help to quiet that mind so you can get the sleep, and the rest of the benefits with stress reduction and losing weight and feeling better physically, those are also there. But the sleep thing is also really, really important for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what would the next step be for you with this? If you were to decide to jump into this, what would the next step be for you?
Making the commitment and sticking to it.
Okay. So you have the bike, you know the walking paths, you're on the cusp here, you're standing kind of on the edge of this, looking down at it saying, I need to make a commitment if I'm going to do this. So
Yeah.
you're not quite there yet. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how willing are you to make this change? What is your commitment level on this?
Probably about a 3.
About a 3. And what does that mean for you to be a 3 on that scale, then?
That is that I'm being lazy.
Okay.
My commitment level should be a 10.
All right, so there's a sense that you're not quite where you want to be. Why did you choose a 3 and not a 0 or a 1?
Oh, because I already had the thoughts already in the process of, I already bought a bike, I already have sneakers to walk. So.
Okay, so we started taking steps toward this.
Right.
This is something that you've been thinking about. You've got the pieces already. So you again just kind of waiting for that moment when the gun goes off and you make that start. You leap into this.
Right.
So what would it take for you to move from a 3 to a 4 with your willingness, with your commitment on this, then, if anything? One little step.
I really don't know because I don't know what's holding me back.
It's hard to imagine right now. You're not really sure what it could be.
Right.
Maybe this just isn't the right time for you to do this. Maybe there's these other things that are more important to you right now.
Some days.
Some days. So there are days when you feel that this is something that you can jump into, and other days you're not so sure.
Right.
Well,
Depends on my schedule, my schedule after work, really.
Yeah, so work is really sort of taking charge for you, and it really depends upon what your schedule is as to whether you can do this or not.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a hard place to be. My hope is that once you make this decision about where you want to go, and I have no doubt you'll jump into it. It sounds as though you recognize the value of it already. You've already invested some money into your bike. You know the routes. You know what you'd gain from it if you chose to do it. Just not quite sure yet that this is something that you would want to jump into.
Right.
My hope, Lynn, is that if you decide to do this, that you'll jump into it. And again, I've got no doubt that once you make that decision, that you'll be very successful in this.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Lynn, if I can hold you for one more second.
Sure.
Okay. Because we're kind of limited on others' responses, I'd like to ask the question that I asked earlier of Teresa, which is, what was it like for you?
Actually, that was a very good conversation.
Okay.
And it helped me that you were putting up the questions, the prompter questions on the computer as you were going.
Okay.
So I wasn't caught off guard or surprised by any of the questions.
Yeah, and these are just ideas of questions you could ask to elicit change talk. So that was the purpose of this. And again, I thank you very, very much for volunteering. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. I'll remute you now. Alan, I do have a couple questions. Do you want to take them now, or?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. I've had a couple people say that they would like you to give a reference again to a DVD you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I can send it to you, but it's Motivational Interviewing. It's called Helping People Change, and it's based on the 3rd edition of the MI book, and it's been produced by the changecompanies.net.
Okay, that's fine. I can I'll go in and get the information and then email it to all the attendees.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's really an interesting DVD. It has Bill Miller, Terry Moyers, Steve Roenick, and they're talking about MI processes, the four fundamental processes, and they demonstrate how to do it.
Okay, and I have a comment. I think it might be useful to clarify that being honest doesn't always equate to self-disclosure. In the example, if the client indicating that the counselor doesn't smoke, an honest response might be, I could use your help understanding. Tell me what it is I don't understand.
Absolutely. That's a great response. That's a great response. So yeah, many responses. These are just examples to stimulate conversations, so it sounds like that was successful. So absolutely, that's a great response. Wanting to understand, what do I need to know to understand? It would be a great question. So yeah, very nice.
Okay, that was it. Thanks.
Okay. So when we hear change talk, we want to elaborate, we want to affirm, we want to reflect it back and summarize. Hey, look, we have another acronym. Ears. Imagine that. So just again, another way of looking at some of the components we've already covered, the affirmation, the reflection, the summary, elaborating perhaps on some of the details. Absolutely. This is my favorite picture, but I think Chris doesn't like this picture too much. But there's an exercise I do in my trainings, which is called Snatching Change Talk from the Jaws of Ambivalence. It came from my friends in Mint. I'm not sure who the original author of it was, so I apologize. This is my PowerPoint on that. So we have our change talk. There's our cat. Look, I'm going to snatch it. There you go. So what this is, change talk is oftentimes is wrapped in sustained talk. That obviously is the nature of ambivalence. So I have a quick exercise that we're going to do. This is where the polling questions will come in, Chris. So hopefully we're ready for that. So this is the first question. So if a patient says, I really don't want to stop smoking, but I know that I should, I've tried before and it's really hard, which of these responses would be an appropriate response that would help to illuminate change talk? Would it be A, you really don't want to change? Would it be B, it's pretty clear to you that you ought to quit? Or would it be C, you don't think you can quit? So Chris, I'm not sure what you want to do as far as your polling. Chris, are you there?
Yes, Alan, the poll is open. If you want to see it, you can click open the little polls box that you have. If you want to see the results.
I've lost my polls box, but that's okay.
Go up to the very top where it says View.
I don't have that right now. That's not on my screen right now, so.
The top of your panel?
Yeah, it's not there right now, Chris.
Okay. Well, we have about 47, 48% right now. I'll read these answers to you. We'll just give it another couple seconds here.
Okay.
Although it really is showing a pretty remarkable options. Okay, I think we can get the idea here. I'm going to close this poll now, and we'll share the results. Okay, 6% chose A, you really don't want to change. 43% chose B, it's pretty clear to you that you ought to quit. And 51 is the winner with you don't think you can quit.
Well, that's really interesting because the correct answer is 2. The 41%. So because the change talk here is, I know, oops, missed it. I know that I should. That's the change talk. Everything else is sustained. I don't want to quit smoking. I tried before. It's really hard. That's sustained. Change is I know that I should. So the appropriate answer is pretty clear to you that you ought to quit. So next one. Take a look at it. Interesting. See, the thing is, all my friends drink. Some of them probably drink way too much too, but if I quit drinking, I don't have any friends. I just stay home. Choices this time. That would be pretty lonely. Quitting would cause a new problem for you. Or number 3, and at the same time you recognize that you and probably some of your friends are drinking way too much.
Okay, we'll launch this one now. Okay, I was limited by the amount of text I could put in. So I shortened the question a little bit, but it is as Alan initially stated it. Right now it just says if I quit drinking, I won't have any friends, I just stay home.
All right, so you left out the most important piece, Chris.
Well, yeah, but I'm only limited to so many, digits. Right, I knew that they would read your or hear yours first, so this is
they can see it on the screen.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we have a clear winner this time.
Okay.
So I'm going to close this one now and share the results. Okay, 5% of the people said that would be pretty lonely. 38% said quitting would cause a new problem for you. And 57% says you recognize that you and some friends drink way too much.
We have a winner, yay! So that's correct. Number 3 is in fact the right answer, or the answer that would eliminate the change talk, because the change talk there is some of them probably drink way too much too. So there's a recognition, there's an awareness that he drinks, or he or she drinks way too much. So there's a reason right there. That's what we're looking at. And the last one of these, I'm having fun with this. I know you're worried that I'm getting addicted, and I guess I can see what you mean, but I really need more pain medicine. You must have fun with this one, Chris, cutting this one down. I don't know how I'll get through the day without it. If you won't prescribe it, then I'll find someone else who will. Yeah, there you go. So is the change talk, we're going to eliminate it by 1. You understand my worry about dependence. By 2, it's hard to imagine how you would get along without more medicine. Or by 3, one way or another, you're going to get more medicine.
Okay, here we go. This is the third and final poll. So I need more pain medicine. If you won't prescribe it, then I'll find someone else who will. Okay, we're doing pretty good here now too. Let's see, we have about almost 70% have responded so far, so I'm going to close this since it's pretty predictable here. And sharing the results, 52% have A, you understand my worry about the dependence. 32%, it's hard to imagine getting along without more medicine. And 16% said one way or another you're going to get more medicine.
All right, majority got it again. So 52% said A. A is actually the answer I was looking for. So what we have here is, I know you're worried I'm getting addicted. I guess I can see what you mean. I guess I can see what you mean. That's really all we have to go on. So I guess I can see what you mean. You understand my worry about dependence. That right there, there's reason right there. There's reason that this person is giving us. It's kind of covered. Both sides of it are covered with sustained talk. So our goal is to mine for it and to hand it back, and that's what you guys did. So thank you very much for that. You did a great job. I appreciate that. So here's an exercise. I'm not sure we're going to have time, but I'd like to just briefly think about these questions as possible questions you could ask yourself or ask a patient about changes they're making over the next 6 months. So the statements will be, again, why would you want to make this change? Thinking of something you want to change. These are really another ways of trying to mine for that change talk. Even asking for it directly. How might you be able to do it? What is one good reason for making this change? How important is it? And why? What do you intend to do? So these are ways that you can certainly look for and illuminate the change talk when you want to draw it out from a patient. These are great questions. There are many other questions you could ask, and not forgetting, of course, once we've asked the questions, we want to be able to reflect back what we just heard, because I think the learning for our patients comes in the reflection. There's some learning that happens when they're thinking about it. There's some more when they answer the question, and there's some more that happens when we reflect back what they answered. Of course, elaborating and perhaps adding to it as well. So just some thoughts around that. And we have the cat. So there's our dying cat. Again, a video clip that I'm not going to have time to show, but I will I'll let Chris know where to find it if she wants to send it to you. So I do now want to show another video. This is the counterpart to the first one I showed yesterday. yesterday, if you remember, I showed a video that I kind of commented that I did not want you to think that that was MI, because it certainly wasn't. It was me role-playing with my good friend and co-worker, Denise Crow-Clark, and I was demonstrating what MI, lack of MI, could do to a patient relationship. So this is hopefully the counterpart of that. Hopefully this is a video that demonstrates what could be done with the same scenario, hopefully with different results. So let's just roll this out and see how it plays.
Well, hi, Ms. Clark. My name is Alan Lyme. I'm a social worker at the Family Health Center. Dr. Seal asked me if I would spend some time with you today. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm just curious as to why he was.
Well, I came to see Dr. Seal last week because of increasing stress and anxiety that's kind of getting the best of me. And in the course of my appointment with him, he was asking how I was dealing with that stress. And I mentioned that my 1 or 2 glasses of wine a few nights a week is turning into more frequent and maybe 3 or 4 on some nights. And he had some concerns about that and felt like maybe you could help me with stress or something.
Yeah, so he asked you to see me because you went to him for increased stress. And he's concerned that your alcohol consumption may be a part of that increase. And prior to prescribing you anything, you wanted to make sure that you at least had someone to talk to about that.
I suppose.
Okay. I saw that you filled in one of the pink sheets. Can I take a look at that?
He told me to fill that out and bring it with me.
Okay, thank you. You say here that you had 4 or more drinks in 1 week. You mentioned that you may be increasing that a little bit as well. And that you have 1 or 2 drinks in one setting.
Typically.
Yeah, and maybe monthly you have more than that. What kind of drinks do you have? What do you drink?
Wine with my meals. You know, again, 1 or 2 typically, and more frequently 3 or 4 since my stress has increased.
So it's starting to increase. You're starting to drink a lot more. Okay. Well, based on what you put here, it gives you 6 points on this scale. The scale ranges from 0 to 40. So 6 points will put you in what we would consider an at-risk zone. So if it's okay with you, let's just talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Okay. So the at-risk zone, say, runs 0 to 40. It's not a super high risk, but it certainly could be a risk for maybe increasing stress, maybe some physical elements related to alcohol as well. Could start to show up if you were to increase your drinking from there, or even stay there. This is a typical standard drink size over here. I'm not sure whether that fits your description of a glass of wine or not.
I filled the glass up, so maybe a little more than that.
Yeah, maybe that little space at the top, so perhaps a drink and a half each one. So that also increased a little bit more. So perhaps maybe drinking more than you indicated on here. And for a woman, healthy woman your age, no more than 3 drinks in one setting is considered to be lower or no risk, and no more than 7 in 1 week.
7 total in 1 week?
Total in 1 week. And what you say here is that even on this sheet, you're perhaps only drinking more than that. So what do you make of all that?
Well, that's news to me. You know, I thought red wine with your meals is supposed to be healthy, and you know, no more than 7 in a week. That seems kind of prohibitive.
Yeah, it seems a little less than perhaps you've been drinking or what you consider to be healthy drinking. Certainly there's conflicting information out there about what's healthy and what's not healthy. I imagine the increased stress is what concerned Dr. Seal. As your stress increases, and if he were to prescribe you anything, maybe some interaction between the two that would also be a concern, I would think. So if you would, what is it that you like about alcohol?
Well, you know, it does, at least in the moment, temporarily reduce my stress. And I, you know, like a good glass of wine. I don't drink the cheap stuff. I like the expensive.
Right. So you like the taste of it, and it does help to lower the stress, even if it's just for that time you're drinking. What are the not so good things about alcohol for you?
Well, you know, the nights that maybe I have a couple more glasses than I should, I wake up feeling kind of yuck. And, of course, part of my stress is finances, and I mentioned I like the good stuff, and so if I'm drinking more, then I'm increasing my financial burden. So
your financial stress may be increased by the fact that you're drinking.
Yeah, kind of defeating the purpose there.
That's 22, but drinking to reduce stress and increasing stress at the same time. So on one hand it lowers it, and on the other hand it's increasing. Kind of the seesaw effect there. What do you make of that, given that on one hand it lowers and on the other hand it increases, and now it's increasing even more?
And maybe I need to find some other way to deal with my stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I imagine you've had some thoughts of that. What have you thought of trying?
Well, I've exercised in the past, and that helps. Right now, my schedule is kind of out of whack, and I just really don't know what to do. That's why I came to see Dr. Seal. I thought maybe he could prescribe me something that would help me, you know, when I'm feeling overwhelmed.
He may be able to. I'm not saying that he cannot. I'm just imagine that he's concerned that if you continue to drink on the level that you are drinking, whatever he prescribes you, maybe an interaction with it. I imagine that's his concern. I'm not completely sure. So you've had some success in the past with changing behaviors. And if you were to decide to make any changes here, it sounds like you could draw upon that to make those changes. How important would it be for you on a scale of 0 to 10? I have a little visual here of that. If 0 is not important, 10 is very important, to do something about your drinking right now.
Well, I mean, if it means that it's increasing my stress or he's not going to prescribe me anything because of my drinking, then it's fairly important, maybe about a 7.
It's pretty up there. Why did you choose a 7, not a 5?
Well, again, I've got to get things under control. You know, my kids are dependent on me, and I've got to go to work to help ease this financial stress, and so, you know, all those responsibilities.
So there's a lot riding on your decision here on what to do with this. What, if anything, will bring it up to 8 or 9 on that scale?
Well, the risk that you mentioned about the drug interaction, I certainly can't afford to, have any more stress. So.
Yeah. So you choose to lower your stress rather than increase it, and if lowering your drinking would have that effect, it's something you want to do. How confident are you that you could do something about your drinking?
I'm pretty confident, probably about a 7 or an 8.
Okay, so it's pretty high up there again. And what if anything would you choose to do? Would it be to cut down? Would it be to quit? I'm just curious about that.
Well, like I said, I like a good glass of wine. I don't want to quit altogether. I'd be willing to try cutting back. But now, if Dr. Seal would agree to prescribe me something for the anxiety, and it meant that I had to not drink at all, I'd be willing to do that at least for a period of time.
So you'd be willing to stop altogether? That's what was indicated by the physician. Okay. So based on that, how ready are you to do anything right now, whether it's to cut back, whether it's to quit?
Well, again, if I can get something to help me manage, if maybe I can find some other way to deal with the stress, then I'd be pretty ready. Again, maybe about on that scale, maybe an 8.
Okay, so that's pretty high up there as well. It sounds as though you're pretty motivated to do something about this right now, given your responsibilities, given your children relying at this point, and just on lowering anxiety in general. It sounds like that's one of your goals as well. Well, I'm pretty confident that once you decide to do whatever it is you decide to do, you'll be able to follow through with that based on your experience in the past and making behavior changes. I imagine some things that you can draw upon. What's one thing that you could do? I imagine you thought of some things that might help to lower your stress.
Oh, the exercise, but again, that's kind of difficult to fit in right now. Hoping that Dr. Seal will prescribe something for me to take when I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed, and maybe just having somebody to talk to bounce some things off of.
One of the things we can offer here is for you to come in and talk to one of our behavioral health specialists. They may be able to help you talk through this area of your life, this area of stress, and sound like responsibility there. And we can make an appointment for you if you like before you leave today. Talk to somebody.
That'd be nice.
Great. I also have some information here if you're interested. A pamphlet on alcohol and what health limits are and how it may be affected by medications that you take as well.
Okay.
And I wish you lots of luck. It sounds as though you're really committed to making this shift and this change. And I imagine Dr. Seal will want to follow up with you and see how you do with your change within a few weeks.
Okay.
And again, I look forward to speaking to you in the future.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so based on that interaction, how willing do you think this patient will be to change her drinking or reduce her risk as a result of this conversation? I can hear you all now saying, oh, it's way up there, Alan. I imagine it certainly would be in this range, I would think. I don't really know, but that would be my guess. And I imagine if this were a polling question, we might get some answers up in this range as well. Certainly a different conversation than the one we had yesterday, hopefully more effective. This was the formula, the intervention card that I was using. This is the one that we sent you as well. You can use and you can change to match your own agency, your own area, your own state, whatever it is you want to match. This has the audit and the DAST, has the limits, the healthy limits, standard drink limits on one side. Then we have some ideas on this side about what you could say, what you could do, where we are engaging, focusing, evoking, and planning. Over here, then we have our SEEK-SAT stuff, the SBIRT online. If you go to SBIRT online, you can actually get links to the videos as well, if that's something you're interested in. There's lots of videos on there, and lots of modules for training as well. So if you're interested in that, there's a link for you right there. So moving right into the last piece then, so again, this is something I was working with for many years, and I found this picture of the weebles. As we know, weebles, they wobble but they don't fall down, and so I love working with them, but now, of course, Dr. Miller decided that he wants to change it, so it's no longer rolling with resistance, but it's actually dancing with discord, so now I have to change my picture. It's not quite as attractive as the weebles, but there you go. So now we're finding ways to move with discord, to dance with discord, rather than knocking it over or wrestling with it. We're going to dance with it. Looking at change talk micro skills, some of the things that we've already talked about in one way or another. This kind of leads into the listen and elicit piece of this. There's some decisional balance can be done. The rulers you have been using there, importance, confidence, and readiness. They would fall under this category. Decisional balance is we're looking at both sides of an issue. I'm kind of running through this because I'm really aware that I'm running out of time, so I apologize for that. But you have this in the handout. So it's really looking at pros and cons. That's what we're looking at. One of the cons, of course, may be that you wouldn't be able to socialize with your social mores. There's a decisional balance chart. There's many ways of doing it. Some have them in 4 quadrants, some have 2. I like 2 quadrants. It keeps it simple for me. I gave you a sheet in the handouts that is from my friend called Steve Malcolm Berg-Smith, and he puts this together very nicely. I don't know if I can pull that up, but you have it, and it really goes over lots of this. So when you do decisional balance, you're going to be offering perhaps a double-sided reflection, looking at both sides of it. And then we have the rulers, importance, confidence, and readiness. You heard me use in the beginning of the presentation. You heard me use them again. There are certain ways I like to use them. I think they're effective. If someone tells me they're an 8, 9, or 10, I may not ask them why they're not a lower number. It may seem perhaps that I'm challenging where they think they are. I may encourage them and ask them why they're so high, but what makes it so high, and stay encouraging as best as I can. So there's some things around importance, confidence, readiness, just some ways that you can think of those concepts. You know, the rulers there. Again, the rules don't change much for importance, confidence, or readiness, or whatever you're putting in there. It could be willingness, it could be comfort, it could be a whole variety of things. There's some things around building confidence, looking back, looking forward, what have others found, what would be helpful to you. Just some questions you could ask around that. Then we're going to get into, of course, this is confidence, and this is extreme confidence. There's that darn cat again, extreme confidence. So then we're looking at the last piece of the fundamental processes, which of course is planning. We may not get to planning in our intervention. Maybe that we just get into the other 3, and maybe we don't get to planning. Maybe we're not going to go that far, but certainly it's something that we can do. And this hopefully will be a place where we're going to involve the ideas and thoughts of the patient much more than our own. Some questions you could ask, key questions around that. What do you think you would do? What changes do you think about making? What do you see as your options? Where do we go from here? Internal question. I lost myself. There I am. And then, of course, into the options for change, we have another acronym, menus. Things you might do: manage your use, eliminate using altogether, never use, and drive, do absolutely nothing, or seek support. So If acronyms are something that you relate to and enjoy, we have plenty for you, so there you go. And then we also look at the options for change. Some hypothetical change, perhaps if you wanted to, if you decided to, if the time were right for you, how might you go about it? It's just some thoughts on that. Then we get to negotiating the plan of action, and this is obviously driven by the patient, not by us, but we help them to determine their goals and priorities and work out the details the best we can. This is where we get to finally give away those pearls of wisdom that we all carry around with us. Of course, with permission, if the patient asks us for advice, if we ask permission to give advice, would it be okay with you if I make a few suggestions that have helped others? If we qualify to emphasize autonomy. There's some new research just come out about alcohol and medication. Would you be interested in hearing about it? We're providing information that will help the patient to have more information so they can make an autonomous decision with all the information. So just some thoughts on providing information. Obviously this is really, the key here is really having that good relationship. So the engaging piece is still the most important piece, developing that relationship so we can get to the planning stage with the patient. Slow down, this is a person, not an information receptacle. Make sure we're not dumping lots of information on them. Consider their context and priorities. And again, being aware of our writing reflex, our desire to make it right. We have to be cautious and conscious of that. Asking permission, offering choices, or using other patients as examples. I wouldn't use yourself as an example. I would use a third party, even if it's something you've done. I would certainly make it a third party. Other patients have found this to be helpful. I'm not sure if it worked for you or not, but it may. Chunk, check, chunk. Give them information, see that it's setting, see they're understanding it, and then give a little more. Elicit, provide, elicit, offer some, get from them what they already know, what they've already thought of, what they've already tried, offer some things they may try if they're willing, and then ask them what they might do with that, if anything. So just some other thoughts on giving information and asking. Other patients have found this to be helpful. We could give you a resource list, offer a menu of options, not just one thing. Because if you give them one thing as an idea, it doesn't work, they're going to blame you, and it's going to be your fault. Provide more information according to the interest of the patient. If the patient hasn't asked you about some other information, some other resources, then perhaps they're not interested. So I'll make sure it fits the patient's desires. Finalizing the interview, so reviewing the commitment, reviewing the plan, setting up a new time to meet if that's appropriate, expressing encouragement. I imagine once you take this on, this will work well for you. I hope this goes well for you. I can see that you're determined that this is going to work for you. Might be some options there. Look at that, another acronym. This is going to be the last acronym. How about that? So it's going to be summarizing the patient's point of views. We're going to then be looking at giving them some encouraging marks to end with, and we're going to talk about the agreement that they reached and what they decided they wanted to do as part of that agreement. There's no W in flow, so we're just going to avoid the warnings altogether. We don't want to do that. So there's a shift, there's an MI shift, hopefully, that you've seen, and it's very true for the SBIRT work and for however you're using motivational interviewing. That is that it takes the responsibility for changing clients' patients' behavior away from you. It's not your responsibility. The responsibility is with them, and it's in supporting them in thinking and talking about their own reasons and means for behavior change. We are responsible for having the conversation. What they do with it after that is up to them. Oh, there's the kitchen sink. I thought I'd throw it in right at the end because, after all, everything's included. So a couple of questions for you. That is all, folks. I like to end my presentations with having you answer 3 questions for yourselves. And that is one thing you liked about this whole presentation, one thing you learned, one thing you're going to try. Obviously, I don't have ways for you to tell me what they are, but I really would encourage you to think about it. My experience of presentations and workshop is if I don't write something down about what I got from it, then I file it in a drawer, and a month later I say, well, what was it I learned that day when I sat for 3 hours and listened to that guy talk funny? So I would encourage you to write these down for yourselves. So Chris, I think we have a couple minutes, and I would encourage questions. I'm actually going to go back to the previous slide, so those of you that want to can answer those questions for yourself while we do this.
Yeah, I don't have any questions as is. One person did comment that she thinks that she could really apply the principles of MI to herself.
Yeah, certainly interpersonal skills are a big part of this, and I know for myself in the last 10 years that MI is not just for patients anymore. It's actually for my life, my wife, my children. Everyone appreciates being listened to and people paying attention to them. That's my experience.
And somebody else sent the message. They go, aha moment. We will begin using areas of ambivalence to help create client treatment plan goals.
Hey, then we have succeeded. So my job here is done. That's awesome. Thank you for that. That's great.
Yeah, that's all I've received so far. Oh, here comes another one. Can you say something more about confrontation? I like the term, but want to know more.
The question about confrontation?
Yeah, Susan, maybe if you could be more explicit, give us some more information as to what you mean. There's another one here. I'm sorry, it was misspelled. It's they'd like you to talk some more about carefrontation.
Carefrontation. So carefrontation for me, what that means is that I am in my reflections and my questions, I am trying to illuminate and to lift up patients' ambivalence. So I'm going to ask questions that may probe, that may have a look down the road at where they are, right, where they're headed and where they're going. Just kind of nudging, guiding them on a path that perhaps they've indicated they want to take. They're interested in change. I want to certainly illuminate and help them look at both sides of their change plan, if you will. So it's through my summaries, it's through that which I choose to summarize, it's through my reflections, that which I choose to reflect. I think even as we reflect change talk and not sustained talk, we are carefully confronting them not to stay in sustained talk, but to move into their change talk. That's my understanding of it, and that's how it works in my practice.
It says, in the video, the patient was asking you about the doctor's plans for medication. What was the MI position in that?
I think I said I'm not sure what the doctor would do. That's up to the physician, or somewhere around that. It certainly wasn't my position to make a decision one way or the other about medication. I guess the precept of the video was that she had been referred to me because the physician was concerned about her alcohol use, and she was looking for medication for anxiety. So he was concerned there may be some interaction with that. He wanted to just check on her alcohol use first. So I never said that he would or would not prescribe. That wasn't my position.
Okay, and I've got two more comments. Appreciated the shift from resistance to discord. Very useful and descriptive, and something I had not heard before.
Yeah, this is Dr. Miller, so thank Dr. Miller, and it certainly is an interesting shift. I must admit, I'm resistant. Oh no, I'm in discord.
And somebody else says that they're going to print the slides and review them every morning before the first client appointment.
That is so sweet. Thank you for that thought. I really hope that some of you decide to take this on. I've seen the value of MI over the last 10 years, and I just see how it changes patient outcomes and patient experience. And that's what we're in it for, after all.
Okay. I have one more poll that we'd like to launch. It's just a real simple one. We want to know if your agency uses SBIRT or not. So this is a simple yes and no. And while you are responding to that, I'd just like to remind everybody that this session and session 1 was recorded, and in a couple days will be in the webinar library. A couple hours after this webinar, you will receive an email with a link to the CEU order form, also a link to the webinar evaluation, which we hope everybody will complete. And
I'd just like to add, if I may, Chris, if I could add that I certainly would appreciate any feedback. Things could be done differently. Things could make it more clear. My goal has always been to make my trainings as user-friendly as possible, as useful as possible. I do respond to feedback. I do change what I do based on the evaluation and the feedback. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there is a place in there where people can enter comments. So that we'll really be looking forward to that now, and we'll get those responses. So in a couple days, you'll see the webinars sections and the PowerPoints on the webinar library site. And you'll be getting the CEU and evaluation email shortly. And that's for people who attended both sessions. Okay, the results of the poll are that 59% are from agencies that are currently doing SBIRT, which is great to hear, and 40% no. So they can still use motivational interviewing, even so, and hopefully the agencies will be going more into using SBIRT. Alan, anything else for you?
No, thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate your time. I know that time is valuable, and I certainly have enjoyed it, so thank you very much.
Okay, sure. And Alan, if you have any other resources that you think would be helpful, just send those to me and I'll pass them on to the group.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. I'm going to sign off now, and again, thank you all for attending.